welcome into the Full 90 podcast with me, Jacob Spoonley, and Nick Hyde. It's great to have you here. Now, just before we get into it, Hyde, I want to make this really clear. I have also done modelling. I'm on the back of a Milo cereal pack at some point, so I just want that to be included as part of the conversation.
What, that happened this year?
No. Well, this has happened quite a long time ago, actually. Now, it happened when I was 20, so I'm sure it counts.
You were a male model at 20?
Anyway, I'm really keen to get the ball rolling on this one, so let's crack on into it. Hyde, man, we'll pass across to you. Make him feel good. I'm sure he is already feeling that way. He's a very confident gentleman.
Okay, I'll try and do my best leading him into the stadium, but not many people can say that they've pulled on an All Whites jersey and had to put a Hugo Boss shirt on as part of their day job. The annoying thing about today's guest is that he combines brains, brawn and good looks all at once and takes it in his stride. My first memory of our guest was him crashing onto the New Zealand football scene via a made-up club called East Auckland in the National League Grand Final way back in 2003 at one of my homes, Bill McKinley Park. He stepped into the shoes in the final for Sean Dowling. And then following a stint at the Football Kings, he then decides, like most young Kiwis, I need an OE. And what better way to do it than by the catwalks of Paris, Milan, London, and New York? Ideas, Spooners? Any ideas?
I'm warming up. So on his return to New Zealand, in a New Zealand Herald article, he was called New Zealand's answer to David Beckham. A real Kiwi hunk. I just threw up in my mouth a bit hard. Catherine Bennett, you need to take a look at yourself. Those words from 2006 have not aged well. Anyway, he returns to play for Auckland City, breaks his collarbone, has 3 years off from National League football, and then comes back to steal my job at Auckland City. He then goes on to make his All Whites debut, none of which counts because he will always be remembered as the Jens Lehmann to my Oliver Kahn. Welcome into the Full 90 podcast, Tamati Andre Williams.
How's it going? When you said brains and brawn, I was like, oh, they got someone else on the podcast. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Hey, Tama, we're going to crack on with it. So our first question is, what's it like looking like David James but being a lot worse?
I think, to be honest, I think David James has aged a lot better than I have. Yeah, I mean, how do you answer that question?
Yeah, that's what we're going to use for the promo, I think, mate. So first off, we've had coronavirus here, the impacts of the coronavirus here felt really heavily in New Zealand. You're currently in Holland. What's it been like observing the shutdown in that part of the world?
I've got a group of Kiwi mates here, and we obviously keep tabs on what's happening with Jacinda and you guys in New Zealand. And time will tell in 3 years whether or not 5 years, when you look back, hindsight will show which one was the best option. But as it looks from our point of view, you guys are doing a great job. And I think a little bit the Dutch perspective on things is maybe a little bit frivolous, where everyone's not really respecting what's going on. There's, they have rules in place, but yeah, it's a little bit shaky, to be honest. No, I heard that they're monitoring how many times you guys go out per day. I mean, I have a supermarket downstairs. I probably go for every single meal. I'll walk down. You can exercise whenever you want. You can even exercise with people as long as you're keeping kind of a meter distance. So, yeah, it's not the same as it is in New Zealand, so it's a little bit easier to tolerate.
So off air just before, we're talking about the last dance. I hear you're a big basketball fan. Are you enjoying this? Are you a Bulls fan or MJ fan or just an NBA in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge basketball fan and I am a huge Michael Jordan fan. But sadly, I'm also a huge New York Knicks fan. So every second highlight on that thing is them dunking on someone in the Knicks. So as much as I love Jordan,
looking made and just
yeah, no, exactly. So I mean, my brother's named after Jordan because he was born on the day he came back. I grew up playing basketball before I moved to Auckland. So this is super young, so I remember watching the NBA when I was really young, when it was still on television actually in New Zealand. Obviously a huge Michael Jordan fan. But yeah, it's a little bit painful to watch us get absolutely hammered in every single highlight.
So watching it, Tama, there was a really kind of simple but effective question that was asked on a podcast that I listened to recently. And it was, having watched The Last Dance, do you like Michael Jordan the same or more or less? What's your take?
No, my take is I've read probably 3 or 4 books on him. I've watched all of his highlights. I've watched him speak like more than most people. So I knew exactly the type of person he was. And while I'll never be that type of teammate, maybe that's, well, I mean, of course it's why he succeeded more than I did. I think there's a certain type of personality you need to be. And he was right. And I think in the most recent one, he said this sacrifice you need to make in order to be a winner. And I completely agree with it. And I think as much as you didn't like him, if you were on his team, they did amazingly. So while the ends doesn't necessarily justify the means, in this case, you can't really argue with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I saw a comment from a journalist, a sports journalist here in New Zealand on Twitter the other day. And they said, isn't The Last Dance really just evidence about how petty Michael Jordan was? And I was like, mate, you've completely missed the point. Like, he was so competitive that he literally defined when he woke up in order to put himself in the best possible shape to improve throughout the day to be a competitor. So, look, at the risk of making this a Last Dance podcast, I think that's a really salient point to make before we move on into your... Well, let's really start with, as Heidi said, a lot of people's first memory of you. And that is in 2003 with a 19-year-old Tamati Williams. And you ended up playing in the National League final where Rupert Ryan ultimately scores a hat-trick and a 3-2 win to Miramar over East Auckland. You weren't keeping in the lead-up for East Auckland in that season. It was Sean Dowling. So how did you end up playing in the final?
Well, what happened is, I think I was about 19 at the time. About halfway through the season, I finally worked my way into the number 1 spot. I was playing, I think it was Bay of Plenty or Tauranga. And about in the 80th minute, a ball came through. And me being a young guy, I was like, okay, brilliant. This is the point where I can punch a ball and maybe punch a guy in the head as well. And kind of assert, now I'm the number 1. And what happened was I got the ball, I missed his head, I punched his shoulder, and I broke a bone in my hand. And so I actually missed pretty much the rest of the season up until about the game before the semi-final. And that's when I was fully fit again. And then it just so happened that in the semi-final, Sean injured himself and they threw me back in. So, yeah.
As a 19-year-old, when you play in the grand final and you lost in New Zealand, did you have a great sense of loss, or did you kind of go, well, it was pretty awesome, I was in the grand final? Because when you're a younger player, sometimes you don't realise the scope or gravity of some of the situations. I mean, I played in the Chatham Cup final when I was quite young in school and we lost. I remember being disappointed, but it wasn't until it took another, I think, 12 years before I played another cup final to realise, man, I should have taken a way bigger opportunity that came my way earlier on in my career.
No, that's exactly how I felt about it as well. I had that, and then I think the year after we won the Chatham Cup with Uni Mount, and I remember being, well, specifically in that final, I played the game, and I came off kind of smiling after the game because I was like, I had a brilliant game, not really registering what had happened, and then with that final in the Chatham Cup, we won that. And I remember everyone being completely ecstatic. I was 19 or 20 years old. And I was like, yeah, this is nice. I was kind of expecting a bit more, I guess, a bit more after the final. Because I thought, hey, I'm going to be in a million finals after this. Why would I? And then I never even got close to the Chatham Cup final again after that. And I think quarterfinals twice. And I think what you don't realise when you're younger is that they are few and far between. And you should celebrate them purely because they are quite an achievement for whatever level you play at.
I'm just saying, like, at this stage of your career, Tamati, things are going pretty much onwards and upwards. You go on 2003 grand final, then you win the Chatham Cup, and then you sign for what is an iconic New Zealand brand, the Football Kings, our only professional team at the time. Are you thinking that this football game is pretty easy at this stage? You're just going, well, this is sweet. I just play in finals. I win things. Now I've been signed on a pro contract at the Kings. What's going through your head as a young man at that stage?
Well, I mean, maybe incorrectly around that time, and this is part of the reason why I left football, actually. I was kind of thinking, hey, I've gone and played in the final of this. I've won Chatham Cup, like you said, and then gone and got into the Kings. And I was kind of like, where's my next step? Where do I go from here? Because this was kind of a couple of years before a lot of Kiwi guys went off to the American university system. So there was no clear pathways. And that kind of brought about my first, we'll go on to it later with the modelling, but I'd even talked about giving up football before that. I think Jimmy Hogg talked me around. He said, no, you should keep playing because this, and this is happening. But yeah, it was a little bit frustrating. In a lot of ways, I was really lucky with the timing of my career. And then in a lot of ways, I was really unlucky. I can elaborate on that later. But
yeah, I kind of tend to agree, mate, because look, first of all, the Kings weren't in fantastic shape at that point in time. Like, they were a bit of a mess. They had players coming and going all over the shop.
No, they were dead last that year. They were pretty awful.
Yeah, and I remember that year as well because I ended up sitting on the bench for one game. But if you actually look at the goalkeepers they had in that 2003-2004 season, you've got Utz, Ross Nicholson, James Bannatyne, Kaz Townsend, yourself, me, and I think there's another. So there's 6 goalkeepers there. I mean, that doesn't exactly scream a great working environment and somewhere where you want to be if you're an aspirational person.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think.
And what was the general feeling? I mean, when the club's losing and coming dead last, and you're tuning through players, and you probably transition coaches, if I think remember well, the enjoyment of football starts to diminish quite quickly.
Well, I guess, and exactly what we're saying about how the final, I didn't really understand the scope of it. I knew what was going on, but at this time I was just like, yeah, I'm happy to be here training with, at my time, I'd looked up to him. I grew up watching him in the Confederations Cup. So I was just happy to be part of the environment. And you don't really think too far ahead at that age. So I wasn't really worried about them not having a team potentially in a year's time or anything like that. It was more just happy to be doing football daily with fantastic players you can learn from. So,
now, did you receive one of the infamous barter cards back in the day that you were able to use as part of your player payments? Because for a while there, barter card, you couldn't use in very many places. And one of my mates is Jeff Kansas, very close mate. And we discovered that barter card could be used at a couple of bars. And we found that he had a rather large tab. And so we were bringing out trays of tequilas. Everybody. It was a fantastic night. Do you have a barter card story for us, Tamati?
To be honest, I don't. And now that I don't, maybe someone took my barter card and just didn't tell me that that was part of the payment. That's probably...
You got an old wallet.
I can see us doing that, actually.
Yeah. You got an old wallet with a barter card sitting in there with about 10 grand just so you haven't used.
Yeah. Actually, both of those goalkeepers, all 3 of them, Bannatyne, Adset, and Ross, I could see them taking my barter card off me and not letting me know that was the thing. So.
I don't even think they took it off you, mate. I just don't even think they let it get to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the season, you're obviously a little bit disinterested with football at this point. And you kind of decide, no, Football King's not really going my way. Fuck it, I'm out of here. And you went off and you started making a living in your undies. So we've never chatted about this before, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to the second part of this question, but when and why did you start modelling?
The long and the short is, I think it was around kind of December, January. We'd just been a part of the 23s with Glenn, and there were 3 separate people who were friends or acquaintances.
That ended up losing 3-1 at Albany, right?
Yeah, to Aussie, the doubleheader.
Yeah, lost 1-0 away and then 3-1 at home.
And then we were
1-0.
Yeah, we were winning 1-0, and then I think Jonesy missed a header from about 4 yards out, which would have made the game really interesting.
I remember that. He hits it, he gets up, he does well, he hits it down as you're supposed to, but then he hits it so far down. It goes
straight into the ground and bounced over the crossbar, and it was the goalkeeper was nowhere near it because he was still stuck at his near post, understandably.
Yep.
So I had a couple of people say, hey, you look a lot like this guy who's on a billboard in Newmarket in Auckland. And me being an opportunist, I thought, okay, this is an easy way to make money. Just stand around.
You stole his barter card. Is that what you did?
I didn't, but I've got a really good anecdote from that specific guy, actually. So I basically just called a couple of agencies. One of them said, send in some photos. Me being a little bit on the lazy side went, no, thank you. Other one just said, come in and meet us. And that's where it started. But the anecdote is his name's Will, and he's actually a little bit Māori. He lived in Australia. I met him about, I'll probably say a year or so later. And it was, everyone was having a laugh about how we look quite similar. His fiance was there, and about 3 hours later in the evening, she came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "Oh, we're going to go, honey. We're going to go." So she mistook us as well. So that was
Did you go?
No, I should have. She was gorgeous.
So what happens? We put like you, Will, and Cliff Curtis in a row, and no one can pick out the difference between you.
Exactly. You don't know where we're from in the world. It's like a Where's Wally of.
So that's the start of it. You kind of get a couple of gigs, and then all of a sudden, I remember seeing you in like magazines and on billboards. So you've done Hugo Boss, Versace, like these insane brands. What other gigs have you done in the world of modeling that would really stick out to people that are listening?
Well, I mean, the people that ask me a lot about these types of things. There's just a couple of jobs I did for Dolce & Gabbana and Calvin Klein, but if you know modeling, they're just showrooms. So essentially, you go to their head office, they have a line that they've prepared for the season, and all the buyers come every day and they say, okay, we want to see these things. So you come out and their stuff. And so as far as modeling jobs go, it's like right at the bottom of those modeling jobs. And generally, well, not generally, but sometimes those could lead to the better jobs for those companies. But they were small jobs, you know what I mean? They didn't pay very well, and they were kind of just. But so there's other jobs I've done which had.
Yeah.
Like,
So what are the big jobs? So one,
places.
explain to us what's a big job in modeling.
Okay, so the shortest explanation of it is usage is where you make good money. So you can do your day rate, whatever you do. It depends on how established you are as a model. So. It's after that where they're going to use it, what region, for how long, that's where the real money is. So things like cologne are amazing because you'll do, let's say, a couple of days work, but that cologne campaign might stay in circulation for 10 years. So they'll pay you that usage every year for 10 years, and you don't have to do any more work for them. I never did one of those jobs. It's kind of.
I was going to say, so every time I'm spraying little Dolce & Gabbana number here at home, you're getting a cent on that dollar, potentially.
Oh, look, if I could tell people that every day I was spraying a little bit of myself on spooners, then
I think
I would dine out on that for months.
Yeah,
but no, I guess the biggest reach one I did was Esprit. It was a campaign. I was in New York at the time. They flew me to Italy for, I think it was 3 days, and it was like half days of work. And then it was a worldwide campaign, so it went everywhere. So I had friends who I'd known from bits and bobs, and they'll say, "Oh, I just saw this, and I saw this billboard here," and yada yada yada. So that was probably the biggest one as far as money and reach.
So there's a whole bunch of fellas at home wanting to know what the girls were like. So how did that work? Were they enjoyable to work with, or were they just completely in a different stratosphere and not your typical, I guess, Aussie and Kiwi girls are down to earth?
Well, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. It was a bit of a mixed bag. So in my experience, even the male models, the female models from Australia and New Zealand, places like Canada, they're pretty cruisy. They're pretty easy to get along with, you know. They kind of fell into it. They have other aspirations. And then you would get to other places where maybe they don't have the luxury of places like New Zealand. So I don't want to slander them, but places like Russia and stuff like that, where it's a huge thing for them to succeed, because obviously they're going back to slightly different circumstances. So they have a different mentality about it. And it's not to say that that's not a good thing, because it just is, priorities different.
So after all this modelling in Europe, you actually come back to New Zealand, and I'm looking at you two having to spend a bit of time together goalkeeping, and you two and Tommy just been explaining your modelling, and Jacob's tried to talk about his modelling. I'm almost seeing it as I think, what's that movie, Daddy's Home? You're almost the Mark Wahlberg to Jacob's Will Ferrell, I think. Would that be a fair comment? I mean, he's the bumbling kind of guy that drops the ball, and you, just the cool guy.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito and Twins. It's a little bit more like that.
Well, you're the Arnie and he's Danny DeVito. That's probably a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I'm just trying to dive into maybe the relationship.
My podcast.
So I mean, I'll dive into it because keepers, you guys are a strange breed. To be perfectly honest, you're different from the rest of us. There's a psyche about you guys, and maybe Jacob, if I can segue into some questions that us outfield players would love to know from goalkeepers, because quite frankly, you guys start off as the players that no one picks for their teams. This is the last person picked as the goalkeeper. So you guys are the unwanted to start with. And then
I had asthma as a kid, so that's exactly what happened.
I've still got asthma, so I'll need to take my breath after this question.
Exactly. So you guys can't run. That's why we don't want you in our team. So you guys get to stand in the sticks. That's cool. And then when you graduate and actually get good at saving the ball and you play for a senior team, you don't even train with us. You train by yourself in the far corner, and we only bring you in when you want to play games with you guys because, quite frankly, we don't need you for anything else because you can't.
We're a better quality of person, Nick. I think that's what.
Well, I think, to be honest, what I'm discovering is you're a separate beast. You don't think like the rest of us. You guys are bizarre. You wear different clothing. You wear gloves on your hands. You're like, look at me, I'm different. And everyone else, it's a team sport, but there's something wrong with you guys. So I'm going to ask a few questions here and see if we get into the psyche here. So first question, what's more annoying? When you punch or save the ball and it goes out for a corner and your teammates say, just catch it? Or when the team you've been playing for ages keeps passing the ball back to you on your weaker foot? Which one's the worst?
I want to jump in here first because that second one happened to Tama a lot. And Ramon didn't really give a shit. He was like, deal with it anyway.
Hey, it's for you.
I didn't understand the question. You said weaker foot. I don't have one of those.
Actually, we'll dive into that.
That was drinking Jacob. I've seen this.
Goalkeepers aren't supposed to wear vapors. What the fuck?
Look, at the time, it seemed like the correct decision. Looking back, and I think even after that season, I bailed on that because the ball there was less of a target to like trap with because the boots are so bloody small. But I was a little bit worried it was gonna bounce over my foot or under my foot, so I stopped wearing those. I don't really have much more to say about my vapors.
I think it's probably put it in a box and we'll tuck that one away. Coming back to your question, Hyde, I think the first. Definitely the first.
But just catch it. We all know how to play goalkeeper better than you do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm going to go
definitely
with
the first one for me.
Yeah.
It's and I in my mind when I think of this, it's Adam Dickinson saying this to me. So it's even more annoying when he says it because he's only doing it
winding you up, and because he has to yell it
because he actually thinks you could catch it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
the timing of it's perfect because the save's been made, the applause has happened, and now it's died down, and then all of a sudden you just hear a Scouse accent cutting through the atmosphere. Just fucking catch it.
Yeah.
Well, because it saves us having to run back 50 metres for the corner. That's the problem, I think. But so the next one is, there's some goalkeepers out there that are prone to what I would call over-saving, basically saving or tipping shots around the bar that were going wide anyway, or doing
Have you got there's parentheses spoonly in that one, isn't it? It's
right here, but I'm going to catch it and then dive.
No. Don't think so, Tama.
Just on that, there was a great video footage a couple of years ago in the A-League. I think it's the Western
Phil
Sydney.
Curto, I think it was.
No, it's the Western Sydney Wanderers goalkeeper, and he accidentally tips, he actually goes to control the ball, and he miscontrols it. It goes out for a corner. It's late in the game. It's 1-0 to them, and then from the resulting corner, the other team scores to draw the match 1-1. Has there been a case where you have used the oversave and it's gone horribly wrong? Or do you sometimes sit at the other end of the field and look at a keeper down the other end and think that guy is just hamming it up for the crowd?
I'll go first. Definitely hamming it up for the crowd. I don't think I've almost never oversaved, but had I had my time again, I would do it because for the vast population of people who watch football, they don't understand goalkeeping. So if they see you make a miraculous save out of something that could be easy, they think you're a hero. So if I had my time again, I would probably oversave stuff. And also I think for the saves where you think you have it under control, if you underdive or you dive to where you think it is and it moves, then you're in trouble if you've overdived, you can at least then kind of regather the ones that move in the air.
Yeah, Heidi was looking for some good chat here. I think I don't think he realizes he's going to get.
Sorry, I gave you a real goalkeeping answer.
No, yeah, I agree.
There'll be some young goalkeepers out there with the technical terms thinking this is just this shit. But yeah, there you go. So next question: what's worse, being nutmegged for the goal or being chipped for the goal?
You want to go first, or I'll go first?
I don't think either. My most annoying one was when you make a save.
Why are you enjoying conceding goals?
Somebody.
What kind of goalkeeper enjoys conceding goals? Who are you?
I don't enjoy conceding goals. I just don't know which one's worse because it's really specific and it's contextual. And I'm not going to give Dicko the pleasure of hearing this and trying to do this at training from this point on. If I say nuts, he's going to try and nuts me every time. If I say chip, he's going to try and chip me every time. So no, I think it comes down to the shot. Was my answer, and if it's a good save, it's a good save. If it's not, it's not.
Mine's being chipped. 100% being chipped.
Yeah, but you're about a foot taller than Jacob, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think outfield players will put it between your legs and think it's a dishonor. But if it's a certain distance, you can't move your leg in. It's impossible. So being chipped, you should have control over how far behind you your goal is. So that is the real dishonor. I think that's the real slap in the face. Is if someone can get over and down in the time that you should have covered it.
But Tama, I want to come back to something that you said at the start of the podcast. And that was that when no one's expecting anything of you, you tend to do your best work. So I think it's fair to say that in terms of the rocky part of that 2011, 2012 season, you were Ramon's favoured player and I was the club's favoured player. So did it almost feel like there weren't any expectations of you from the club? Like I'm talking about those off the field. And that with Ramon's backing, you felt like you had a foundation there, but no expectation to go out and do well.
No, I think it was more just you guys. I think you'd played them the year before, a Japanese team. They're clearly superior in pretty much every area. No one was expecting us to do anything. It was my first Club World Cup. I remember getting the shivers down the spine when you're standing in the tunnel and this the big stadium, you're walking out really nervous. And then I just thought, let's just kind of have a go at it. Like,
I'm more talking about the start of the season. More talking about the start of the season.
No, I'm a full disclosure. Well, not full disclosure, partial disclosure. When it comes to Auckland City, I still don't think they like me. I don't think they ever did. I think there's club people that do, but I don't think the people higher up ever took to me. I won't go into the details. The Ramon thing was kind of it was there was something I watched a documentary on Denmark '92 European Championships. And it was Schmeichel's thing. And he said, I made a decision one day when I was quite young to just, you can feel any way about a certain situation. And he's like, I just decided to not worry about the mistakes I was going to make because they're inevitable. So why worry about them happening? They're going to happen. And that kind of struck a chord with me. And I think coming back into Auckland City after the break, that's the mentality I went into it. I was just like, okay, I've just come from 3 years of playing, being injured or lower league football. What do I have to lose here? So I might as well just try and play with freedom. And if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And if I am, then it'll come through. And that's kind of what I took, I guess, from kind of 28 onwards. So
yeah, that definitely had that kind of feel to it, I think. So in terms of those expectations, I think that's a really good example of 2003 versus, what was it, 2011, 2012. It was just a very surreal kind of moment there where you said that, and I thought, yeah, absolutely, that kind of sums up what happened in that season or the opportunity that you got given. And it did result in what is a pretty phenomenal performance against her Sanfrecce. Was it?
Yeah.
Is it the one I'm trying to remember? Hiroshi Sanfrecce. I remember we were watching an Ika Casillas video before the game to get hyped up. And there was a double save, one off a header, and then he goes and he makes a save off a striker that's coming in to try and score a tap in. And there was exactly the same moment that happened in Hiroshima San Frecce. And you came to me straight after, and you're like, in my head, I was like, I made the first save, which is a great save, and then the ball was dropped to this guy, and apparently you're just thinking, Spooners, watch this. And you just pulled out this phenomenal double save that was ridiculous and went really kind of in step with your performance throughout that match.
Yeah, I mean, it rings true. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking when I did it, but probably shouldn't say that. At the point of when I jumped in front of it, I actually closed my eyes. I felt, as you do, obviously swinging his leg from half a meter away. But I remember thinking, I remember it hitting me, and then I've gone, oh, shit, this better not have gone into the net. And then I heard through the screaming, I actually heard Ivan Visilic said, "You fucking beauty," before I opened my eyes. So I was like, okay, I should open my eyes and jump back up now. This is we're still in this kind of thing. Yeah, it was surreal. The whole game was surreal, to be honest. It just you have certain days, I think, in sport, I think at any level, where things just go right for you that day. They just go right. And I mean, I'll never live down the goal. I'll always kind of wish that maybe I took a different stance on it. Obviously, it was an absolute screamer. But you kind of wish maybe I gave myself a little bit better a chance, or I got closer to it, or and that I have
yeah,
that
I
with
want to
every
check
goal.
because like you've played a worldie of a game and we're 0-0 and it's the last 10 minutes, I think, or 5 minutes or something like that. Like, set aside the fact that Dicko misses an absolute sitter with 2 minutes to go.
Not my words.
There is no way in hell you're getting anywhere near that ball. I think the only thing that you regret is that you didn't put the effort in, as you say, to look like you're hamming it up to make it look as close as you possibly could.
There's no way I'm getting anywhere near it. But maybe, I guess the way I look at it is that maybe I could have put myself in a position where it didn't look so, I don't know.
You waving it as it goes past, thinking it might be
a little bit
wide.
like, hey, I'm just watching this is beautiful shot, thank you, and clapping as it goes past. Kind of that part of it. I guess I kind of, and not to go back too much into the technique of it, when he shot, I kind of went on my tiptoes because I was going to jump, and I was like, there's no way this is going in. It's going over the crossbar.
Mm.
And if I'd stayed lower for longer, maybe I could have been at least launched for. The ball moved all over the shop. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, getting back into the technical part of goalkeeping. We've had some contributions from people, from former teammates, from friends. Look, I can't remember the details of this particular one, so I'm actually hanging out to see what your response to this is. But before we head into the 2014 Club World Cup, and Heidi's going to take us through that, we've got a incident that apparently happened in the islands. And from what I can tell, you were rooming with Adam Dickinson. He's gone out for a couple of beers, as Dicko wants to do.
My word. How do you know about this?
And all he said is, ask Tama about the big leaf incident.
About the front. Yeah.
So I know where this, I've got a snippet and I know where this ends, and I'll want you to give us the detail as best you can remember it.
Well, I'll try and keep it as PG as possible. Basically, it was the last night of the tournament, and generally this always means...
Which tournament was it?
I think it might have been just a game in Fiji. I can't remember. Yeah. It was either the Champions League or was it just a standalone game? I can't remember. But I remember the last nights, generally when everyone gets a bit loose, there's a lot of sun, everyone's tired, so the alcohol just goes straight to the brain. And I knew what he's like. So what I did was... he's going to come in and out, and I just want to sleep. So, stupidly, I locked the door. He knew I was in there. He comes back. Oh, he was cursing and screaming. He went away. He came back like half an hour later. He was knocking on the door. Then he went away again. He came back with security guard. The security guard opened the door from him. This is actually before that. I let him in. He got really angry. He tried to jump on me, be out completely naked under the blankets, by the way. He's jumping on me.
So you sleep naked?
I'm kicking maybe, or in full length flannel pajamas. I'm gonna kick him off me. He goes away, gets drunker, comes back with the security guard. And by this point, he's irate. And I'm I've let it go too far. I've got to let him in at some point, otherwise it's just going to end really bad for me. So I open the door, jump back into bed, still naked. He puts me in a headlock, and one of the only things I can remember distinctly is me looking up, not being able to really speak because he's a strong guy. I can't really speak, and I'm just looking at the security guard who's standing in the door, massive Fijian guy, just looking at this guy wrestle me. And I was thinking, are you going to help, or are you just going to look at me getting? Is this the last vision I have before I die? Is just
the UFC chokehold is the end of Tamati Williams.
Like, it looks like from his point of view.
I think at this point the blanket had fallen off. So this massive Fijian guy just standing in the door, naked dude, getting choked to death because his roommate locked him out. And earlier in the night, the frond thing was he'd brought a frond back, like a massive palm frond. He could barely get it in the door. You know, it's like one of those dogs who has it in their teeth. They can't figure out how to walk through a door. It's like one of those. So he was hitting me with a palm frond for quite a while before this. And that's why I said ask him about the palm frond. But it was absolutely ridiculous. And we have a laugh about it now. And he apologized, but it was actually quite fun to be a part of, aside from the naked part.
All right, I'll take us on a bit more of a.
Can we just pause?
You want to talk more about nudity in the headlocks?
No, I just want to appreciate it from the security guard's point of view. This poor guy, he's working the night shift, and he's got Dicko, who's coming in slurring his words, probably can only just make out the room number. So he's like, all right, I'll take you back to your room. Opens up the room, and then just witnesses this assault, which results in this naked man being tossed around the hotel room.
The kicker was we went to breakfast the next morning. Obviously, he's shady. And I was like, what were you on last night? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I gave him a full rundown that I've just given to you. He had no idea. There was obviously a palm frond still sitting in our room. He had no idea how it got there or what it was used for. But the Fijian, Dicko's probably like 90, 95 kegs. This Fijian guy would have been about 120. He was massive. And he just looked at me like... You literally made your bed. Unlucky, mate. This is.
You chose to room with this guy?
I don't get paid enough to intervene with this shit. So. Yeah, so that's the palm frond story.
Yeah, so that Club World Cup is held in Morocco, which, to be honest, couldn't be further from New Zealand in terms of playing conditions, the environment that you're in, the culture of the country. Auckland City in the past had gone there for their one-off games because this really was a one-off game. You play the Moroccan champions. That's Maghreb.
Tetun Maghreb or Maghreb Tetun.
Yeah. So in the past, you kind of go up there and you've played really well, but you've been almost. I guess we talked about this before. Sometimes you doubt yourself. It's a small club from New Zealand playing a fully professional side. But Auckland City got better at the approach, and obviously you guys stopped off in Dubai, and you played against the Uzbekistan national team. I mean, the All Whites can't even get a game at the moment, and Auckland City can get games against Uzbekistan. You guys pull off a 0-0 draw in Dubai with a national team of Uzbekistan. Is this a point where you guys start to think, well, hey, shit, we're not too bad here? You know, this has got to be a bit of a marker to say, just maybe we could knock off these Moroccans. Is that where you guys start to believe that the journey can happen?
I think from my point of view, it was the year before when we played Casablanca. So we got there and they were obviously, they're a better team. But they're the best team, I think, history-wise with Morocco. And there were times in that where we thought we were doing okay against them. We got the goal back, which was obviously against the run of play. But the first goal they scored was a soft goal. So if you kind of take that into consideration, they obviously had more of the possession and stuff like that in the territory, but they weren't as dominant as the Japanese teams are against us. So from my mind, it was more that one, and then coming back and knowing that Tetuan was maybe not as established and not as big. And then also kind of the mistakes that we learned from that first year with that they seemed fallible, which the Japanese teams just don't really.
So anyway, we get to that first game. It's a hostile crowd. You know, you're playing in Morocco. Everyone's home support. Really, Auckland City is not given any chance from, you know, any reporter. The FIFA annuals are writing up underdogs, minnows, whatever else you want to do. However, the game finishes 0-0 and go to penalties. Now, Tama, you obviously, did you have any information on these Moroccans? What was the planning from Ramon or the team around if we go to penalties? Do you know to go right? Number 10 puts his penalty left, or are we just on Tama, do your best?
From memory, I think we had one or two of their penalty, like their regular penalty takers, and where they went. So they obviously have a couple that line up. One who's, if he's on the field, he takes it, and the other one's like a backup. So we kind of knew, but the information that we had from, especially their main one, was he was quite varied anyway. I think he'd taken like 5, and he'd put like 2 of them in one corner, 2 in the other, and 1 down the middle. So there was no real like definitive. So it was kind of just like, okay, just Ramon had given me something which I don't like to give out. Actually, it's some information. It's about how.
I know what you're talking about. You don't need to. It's a trade secret.
This is goalkeeper starts, or players know to start avoiding it. But it was just the way that the run-up's set up. There's a 60-40 split.
Are we talking the hips?
No, it's like the angle of their run-up. So if they set up a certain way, 60% of the time they'll go this way. So you just kind of play the numbers, and that's basically. It's
a subconscious thing, Hyde. It's if I'm going this way, I need to do this, and it involves the run up.
Well, you guys leave it in the goalkeepers union.
It's intellectual.
We don't need to know this. All good. But anyway, you I think Jacob, do you have a question there, or?
No. I mean, I just think that so you've saved one, and. Was there one that you were really disappointed you didn't save? I think you came off.
Yeah, one clipped my glove and went underneath.
Yeah,
there was because I think 4 of them I went the right way, and the 5th one that I didn't go the right way was the one that hit the post and bounced out. So every single time, and every single person that came up, I was finding a different way to trash talk them. I'm not sure if they even understood what I was saying, but
I don't think they could hear you. I don't think the stadium was so loud.
The pressure that their team, their nation had put on them to win, you could see it in their face when they walked up because they were scared. It had nothing to do with us. I think it helped a little bit that I saved the first one because they were like, okay, maybe this guy is okay at penalties. But the pressure that they'd put on themselves, the what do you call it? The rebuke that they would get from not winning that game, you could see it before they'd even taken their penalty. So they were completely worried before they got involved.
So round 1, you've gone through on penalties, and I guess having beaten Namakali and going to the Club World Cup, that's $1 million for the prize money already. And then you go on and you beat the Moroccan champions in the first round, which puts you into the main draw, and voila, I think it's another $1 million, just like that.
500 grand, I think it is. I think it goes up
US,
500
yeah. So. Yeah. Are you guys kind of getting back in the changing room thinking, holy shit, this is going to be fantastic? Is it even in the mindset for some of the younger players, or are you just going, who's next? Like, that was great. I can't believe we're still here. What's the thought? What in the changing room, what are you guys thinking?
In the changing room, it was 100% about getting to the next round. I'd be lying if I said that there were murmurings around the team in the subsequent days where you have time to sit around, you have time to talk, and you have time to do some maths in your head.
Some zeros floating about.
Yeah, it definitely popped up. I think we might have even had kind of an impromptu players-only team meeting regarding it. I think Ivan led it, and he said, look, let's not worry about this now. Let's just play the games, and we can talk about that type of stuff once we get back to New Zealand. So that was basically the extent of it.
Yeah. So I think at this stage, Real Madrid hadn't even turned up for the tournament. That's where we're at. So you guys are moving forward to what is effectively a quarter-final against Sétif.
Sétif.
Yeah. So they're, again, another African team.
From Algeria.
So I think even before the match, the coaches are kind of still saying that you guys are the underdogs and you shouldn't have got through, and that they won't take you lightly, and that they'll put up their best side, and therefore it'll be an easy win for them. So you're still not getting any credibility for what has been achieved. Tami, you make there's a point blank save in there late in the second half that you make to keep the guys in the game. It breaks down the left from a cross, falls to the far post player who's completely unmarked, and you rush out on the 6-yard box, and that save is basically what wins the match there late in the match. Do you remember that one?
Well, I remember it well. And That's probably the best thing that my penis has ever done, if I'm honest.
I was wrong, Tama.
Yeah.
That's the promo
I
right there.
remember that had me square on the old meat and two veg, and then you obviously, which is why I stayed on the ground afterwards. But yeah, I remember it well, and kind of as soon as that happened, because you kind of think when you go in as a goalkeeper, you're like, they'll probably have one or two real clear-cut chances. And as soon as that hit me, I think that was like, I want to say early 80s.
Mm.
I was like, we've got these guys when that happened. Because it's like, it's just everything's falling for us. Even when they pull us apart and they come down one side, we still, it was, and I can remember there's a couple of guys that even sprinted behind me. So like we were fighting like tooth and nail to keep that thing out. So
yeah, I think for me, once we got past Titoon and we saw Satif and we saw they had this chubby keeper in goal and a couple of big lumps up front and then not much else, I think we went into it believing probably more than the Titoon game that we could get a result. And once Johnny scored, I think we take control of the game from memory, Tom.
Yeah.
And we knew that they were going to have a chance because they're going to throw everything at us, right? Like it's a one-off game again. So there's going to be a chance, but there's also a chance for us.
Yeah, you had a
I
couple
think
in
later
that
in the
second
game.
half too. A couple of quick breaks that could have gone your way as well. So,
and I think there were a couple of parts where we got olays because we were stringing together 6, 7, 8 passes around them.
Yeah, and the Moroccans don't exactly like the Algerians, do they? So they're going to rub it in anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this stage, you're back in the changing room. I'm sure that we'll be coming down the road as absolutely humming. You're thinking, we're in the frickin' semi-finals. There's us, San Lorenzo, Cruz Azul, and Real Madrid. And you're going, we're playing San Lorenzo, so you're playing the Argentinian and South American champions. This is nuts. The team from Kiwitea Street, Auckland City, you probably played Otago in the league before that with 50 people watching. And you're heading out against some of the biggest names in football on a world FIFA stage thinking we are possibly 90 minutes away from playing Real Madrid in the final for the best club side in the world. And until you put it into those perspectives, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
And yet you're in the semi-finals and you're still not getting any credit. It's a dream. And I remember being back in New Zealand, I'm watching the games on TV and I watched this game against San Lorenzo and it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Like, I mean, I'll give you one of the stats that blew my mind. Auckland City versus San Lorenzo, watch the highlights. Auckland City percentage of possession, 57%.
I didn't know that.
Is off the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the easiest game of the tournament, I thought. And I'm not saying that to discredit the result, but I felt it was the most, let me say that again, not the easiest, it was the most straightforward time. I felt like the game was simple and you could see that you were playing well and we were in control. So what were your thoughts on that game?
Just moments, goalkeeping moments. The one that's come under Angel, I think the one from extra time. Yeah, I mean it happens. It's such close distance. He's marked 1-1. The shot could go anywhere. That's fine. I don't think so too much about that. The first one will, along with quite a few other goals, will always piss me off. And I don't like to get into the technical side of it, but it's one of those ones where you come across your goal and where you set in the middle of the goal, one of my defenders was standing in front of me, so I couldn't see. So the moment where he's gone to shoot, you have to choose a side to lean out. Yeah, I choose to lean out one side to have a look, and I see him shoot. And by that point, because I've put some of my weight on my right side, there's no way I can get back to save it at the near. And so, yeah, I mean, the game itself, yeah, I mean, I've rewatched it a couple of years back, and we had like 2 or 3 really good opportunities to go 2-1 up.
Do you want to touch on one of those opportunities?
I mean, yeah,
it's unfair.
It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's part of football. The only thing from my end of the field, I just wish it hit target. It just give us a chance.
Should we see? Let's set the table for you, Tama. Let's set the table for you. So I'm watching this on field level, and Heidi's watching it at home. And What is it, Heidi? Is it 1-1 or is
Yeah,
it?
so obviously you've talked about the goal that you guys conceded, but then I think it's Angel Valera scores that really acute angle goal.
Yeah.
It gets played through. I think Ryan goes for it. He gets a slight touch on it. It goes wide of the keeper. And basically from the byline, I don't know how he does it.
He's done really well.
He slots it. It gives you guys are 1-1. And we're getting to the end of the match, and you break down the right. It comes into the middle. You pass across to Tade, who is completely unmarked on the edge of the D. The keeper is coming out. It's come from that side. The keeper has covered his far post. And for me, I'm a natural right footer. I'm curling that ball along the ground as a pass just inside the far post, and it just rolls in nicely. You go 2-1 up with minutes to go. What happens?
He takes it onto his left foot, goes the side that the keeper's gambling on him going.
Which is pushing him even wider from the goal. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and he's one of the best players in Auckland City's history. So
yeah, it's just one of those things that happens. And I think, unfortunately...
It's a little bit what I said about the whole, when you play free, it's easier. And I think when he thinks less and just goes with how he feels and his intuition, he's devastating. It's in moments like that where he took the time to think and doubt and then make a decision. That's what's killed him.
Do you think there was any pressure on him? He's an Argentinian playing against an Argentinian team. Do you think that was...
Oh, definitely. He'd had a couple of extra interviews that week. He knew that was guilt-edged. You could see it in the way he did it, and you could see it in his reaction afterwards. He just thought too much. He should have just thought, I'm
It's
on
a first-time shot.
as an 8-year-old. Let's just play it and play the what do you call it? The percentages.
I think the thing for me is that no one in the team had a pop at any or questioned him or anything like that, which is probably the benefit of being a striker, because goalkeepers don't get the same sort of leverage. But I think the thing that is kind of holds that moment in the memory is that it was so simple. Everything kind of lined up, and he just didn't quite read the situation. And had he read the situation, as you say, Heidi, we're now 2-1 up with moments to go against a team that we've dominated for large chunks of the game. And I don't think
Argentinians, they would fold. They would have just gone, this is so embarrassing. They would have all gone, imploded on each other.
It was in the 80. It was really late in the game, so there's no way they would have come back from that.
And then, unfortunately, 7 minutes later, 90th plus 3 minutes, they go down the other end and score to go 2-1 up.
Well, we also had we hit the bottom of the post on another shot as well.
Yep, that's correct.
So they didn't have a lot. They had a couple of opportunities. They didn't have a lot. And it was one of those ones where after the game, we were disappointed that we'd lost to them, which was the weird thing. Because we had the better opportunities to beat them. So you go into it going, okay, let's just see where we go. We're obviously playing the South American champs. I remember them doing, Ramon wanting to do a team talk at the start of the week. And I was just like, you're having a laugh. Why are you giving us feedback? They're going to rinse us. Let's just play the game. And then you get on the field. Obviously, I didn't say this out loud to people because you want the younger players.
With your face,
you want the younger players to believe, and obviously there's a small chance. And as the game goes on, you grow in belief. But we were disappointed. I felt disappointed. I know Ivan did. I know there were one or two others who were talking afterwards. We were like, I know Ivan especially actually, because we were like, we did amazing, and you try to look at the bigger picture, and for the first, I guess, hour afterwards, Ivan was just swearing, and that's the mentality you want from the whole team, because we should have been playing Real Madrid. Maybe not the best team on the day, but we certainly had the best chances.
Yeah, I think that's bizarre when you say it out loud like that, mate. But you ask anybody in that Auckland City team or that squad that was there, and they will tell you that we should have been in that final, which is ridiculous to say.
And then Ramon doesn't need to do the team talk because we're going to get rinsed.
So I mean, look,
but how fun would that have been? Oh. I mean, we could have even said to Ramon, look, just give us a half each. This is like getting peppered by Real Madrid is a goalkeeper's dream. There's no downside. Everyone's expecting us to concede 5 goals a half, so let's just have at it.
In fact, do a crazy formation, play both of us in goal, and drag one of the strikers.
Play both of us in goal. We can only use one hand each, so that's 2 hands for one team. So let's just do that.
So if we move on, so I mean, the disappointment of that semi-final, I guess you've got to get over it, and you realise we've still got a third, fourth playoff, and I think anyone that's played in third, fourth playoffs knows that it's really the team who's the most motivated that will win. It doesn't matter which 11 names you put on the sheet; it's whoever actually wants to get up for it will win on the day. And for you guys, it was a bit of a strange thing because, Tama, you've played every match up until now, and Jacob's been, giving you the plaudits for the saves and all that, and then suddenly out of the blue,
so weird.
Spooney's on the list, and Tama, you're now on the bench. How does that happen for you guys? Who know? Did you have any inkling of it? What was going on?
There was a lingering thought. Ramon let me know. He said we're going to play Spooners, and and in true goalkeeping fashion, when he said it, I was like, I can totally understand that. And when they won, I was like, damn it, I wish I was the one who won the game. This is a typical goalkeeping thing. You want to be a part of the winning side. But when he came to me for the actual game, I was like, yeah, I can understand that. And had it been the final and they changed it, yeah, I probably would have lost my shit. But
I was going to say, imagine that. Hey, we've made it to the final. We're playing Real Madrid, but Spooners hasn't played a game, so we're going to play him in this one.
Yeah. No, the only thing that, I understood the decision. I agree with it. I mean, if I travelled and trained, you train the whole year for that one tournament. So 90 minutes, and maybe Ramon was not expecting to win it. I don't know, but
I wasn't expecting it, Heidi. I mean, we're doing the training the day before, and I'm fucking around because I'm like, we're going to play Tama. It's 500k on the line. There's absolutely no way that he's going to roll the dice on a guy that played his last game before this one against Wanderers FC. I think that was the last game that I played. A National League team that's made up of under 20 internationals. And again, it was really weird how he did it. He just comes up to me and he goes, in his way, he's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yep." Weird that you're talking to me before training. And then he just kind of slapped me on the chest and he was like, "You're playing," and walked off. And I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like, are we playing in the training game or?" And he just left. And I was like, "Tama, has he told you you're not playing?" And Tama's like, "Yeah, he told me."
I think I have areas where I'm not good as a football player, which I won't go through. This list is long. But I think I do think one of my strengths is that I'm a good teammate. And I was ecstatic for Spoons to get on the field, and even more so that it ended in a penalty shootout, and we could both run off like the heroes, even if, you know what I mean? Because goalkeeper, if you make it through the penalty shootout, just by default, you're the hero.
We'll
and he made a save as well. So
I watched the FIFA highlights today, and we'll get to that save in a minute, Spooners. But when you do make that save and the celebrations occur, the camera does pan out, and there's a shot, Tamo, you've got the bib on, being the sub, and you've picked him up, and the two of you are off to the side celebrating. And I think it really sums up, the team environment of what Auckland City is, but also the goalkeepers have that ability that I don't know, you've got a different psyche of the game, and I think supporting each other is really critical to that. So
yeah,
there's a saves made on that game, and I think, like Tama, you actually have to make a point blank save that keeps you in the game. Did you use your penis for that one?
No, I used my non-modeling.
You got to use your head, mate. You got to use your head.
Apparently, this is the rumor that's happened, is that they've gone into the change room. They're 1-0 down against us, and they're on some serious coins. There's a couple of players that are on like 1.5 million a year. And apparently the coach has just gone in and said, you're done. You're subbed off. And by the way, once we get back to Mexico, find a new club. All that being said, they come out and they destroy us. And it was frightening. Absolutely frightening. Like the first 5 minutes, these guys are giving it everything they've got. And we were basically like camped on our 18-yard box and just trying to figure out where they were. They were coming from every single direction. And I remember thinking at one point, Tama got San Lorenzo, who were just passing the ball around at the 18-yard box, and I'm just going to get absolutely murdered here. Like, we're going to lose this one 4 or 5-1. Like, that's what I remember thinking. I was like, Jesus Christ. And it's one of those moments where you look up at I don't know if you've done this, Tom, but if you look up at the clock, and you're like, that's got to be 15 minutes. Surely that's 15 minutes. And you're like, it's like 49. And you're like, what? What? We're only 4 or 5 minutes into the second half. How much longer can this last for?
Yeah. No, I totally have that. For the second game against the Teeth, the first 80 minutes were a blur because I don't know. It was completely surreal. And then we went up and I was like, this is unbelievable. And then the last 10 minutes it's relative. It was the slowest 10 minutes of my life. It just went on forever. But the first 80 I can't even remember a lot of it, to be honest.
Okay.
Before we move on, I've got a Sonny Issa story. So what happened was, like you mentioned earlier, he was in the final. So we signed him after that. And for the large part, he didn't really fit well in the Ramon system because he's lightning fast. So he's more one of these players that likes to get in behind and counterattack and stuff like that. So we bring him in. He had some visa problems getting in from, I think he's Nigerian.
Yeah.
So I think we were trying to get him back into New Zealand so that we could fly him across to Morocco. So he arrives at the tournament a little bit late. He turns up. He has no boots. He didn't bring boots with him. So I go with him to get some extra gloves. Because
you don't bring boots to the Club World Cup.
Exactly right. So I wanted to go buy some extra gloves. So we try and look through all these places in town to get some stuff. We go to the Nike store. There's like a million different types of boots, and he only wants the top level vapors, and they don't have them in his size. So the chairman of the I think it might have actually been Terry. He was like, just pick a pair of boots. Like, come on, let's just get out of here. We've got training soon. He ends up buying those vapors that are a size too small. So he takes the insole out of them. So he actually played all of his minutes with boots that were half to a full size too small, no insoles on them, and he hits both of the penalties in the 2 penalty shootouts. People don't realize that,
and he's like walking off the field
crazy.
afterwards,
just like
and he can hardly walk. He's absolutely gone. Yeah.
So I'm thinking from a player's point of view that I've just come third. Well, no, I haven't come third, but if I was in the team with you guys, I've come third in the Club World Cup. The accolades are just nuts. I'm going to go to the showers. We're going to knock some beers back, have a great time, and then we're going to sit and watch Real Madrid play football, and then we're going to go party.
Well, that's the thing, Hyde. So we all of a sudden, like, the day gets better because we've come third, go back into the changing room, and all of a sudden there's like Luka Modric, Ronaldo, Bale, and this is no word of a lie, they want to hang out with us. They want to have a chat about like this team from Auckland that has defied all of the odds and kind of got to that third spot at the Club World Cup. And then the weirdest thing in the world happens is Luka Modric walks up to Mario Berlin and starts like high-fiving him and chatting away with him. And no one knew at that point that they'd been in the Croatian under-20 team together. So he's like best mates. Turns out that Luka then offers us the chance to go to Real Madrid's hotel to party with them that evening. But then after the game, they find out that they have to fly straight back to Madrid because they've got to play a La Liga game. So we're trying desperately at that point to figure out how we can get keys to the hotel room for Real Madrid so Tama can get smashed about again by a big league.
There's palm fronts in Morocco. We can make this work.
So we're in our Nike tracksuits, which are like 2 or 3 seasons kind of previous. And Real Madrid in the number 1 Adidas gears, and they're all like, tailored kit and everything like that. And FIFA's absolutely paranoid that we're going to like injure or like do something to one of the Real Madrid players. So they set up a security cordon between us and the rest of the teams. And the boys are like, oh yeah. But they don't realize that the security guys are just as starstruck by Real Madrid as we are. So they're not really paying attention. And basically about 30 seconds after we get told not to go anywhere, you turn around and there's like Sonny Issa taking selfies with Gareth Bale and Fabrizio Tavano walking around, at which point FIFA's going mental and the security's like, well, we can't do anything. What he wants to do, because it's all on TV at that point. And then, as Thomas said, we go up to get our medals and there's this little kid on stage and we're like, what is, who's this? Is he like a Make-A-Wish kid? This is the dying dream kind of thing. He wants to be up on stage with us. And so all the boys are walking past and they're having a great time. And everyone's kind of like patting him on the head. I think Sammy Burfoot did it initially. And then from that point on, everyone starts patting him on the head. Turns out it's the Crown Prince of Morocco, and it's a fine, it's a penalty punishable by death if you touch him. And so all the points are like, oh, okay. Good thing we're flying out tomorrow then.
It's going to our head.
I guess that's why Auckland City never come third again. I mean,
Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's the Club World Cup. Real quick, Tom, and I think I want to touch on this because it's quite unique. But after that, as a, 28, 29-year-old, you're not really satisfied and you decide you want to have a crack at pro football. What's the mentality at that point? Because that's pretty powerful stuff.
Ignorance. It was purely out of my desire to stay in the national team. I think at that point, like obviously I had a dream when I was a kid to play in Europe. I had a conversation with Anthony and he said, look, if you want to stay in the team, you need to move away from Auckland City because ultimately it's just 90 minutes of you passing from left to right because most teams don't test you. So we need you to go somewhere where you get tested. I'd recently acquired my Dutch passport. And I thought, okay, I know a couple of people there. I've got family there. I'll start there, see what happens. Maybe I'll end up going somewhere else in Europe, but essentially just try and play. So for the mentality, it was purely just to stay in the national team.
So look, Tom, thank you so much for taking us through your footballing career. I understand that you're in the middle of a thesis at the moment. I am not going to even get into it because I don't understand what's going on. But thank you very much for your time this evening, your morning. And we will endeavour to get this podcast out as soon as possible. So it is the full 90. We obviously have other contributors for the podcast. Hyde, what are your concluding thoughts on the fine young Tamati Andre Williams?
A lot of nudity, to be honest. Nudity, slaving with his penis. And
sex sells, Heidi.
Yeah,
sex
to be
sells.
honest, this it'll go well. And the only other thing I think of, Jacob, is having to look at you for this long on a Zoom is get a haircut, brother. Seriously.